Hey everybody, welcome to Icarus, episode 1, a new project in Planet Coaster. It's a torque coaster, so kind of like Full Throttle in Magic Mountain. It's got a launch section at the beginning that's very similar to Wizard in Lagoon, and it's got a top sort of spirally element that's kind of like Cheetah Hunt in Busch Gardens Tampa. Now, I haven't played this game at all since the very first alpha came out, like forever ago, so it's been a while for me personally, but I wanted to pick a project that was going to have a very broad scope, I guess. I mean, it was going to cover a lot of things that are available in the game. I wanted to try a lot of terraforming, I wanted to have lots of water elements, I wanted to have a kind of interesting layout with lots of room to add different things, add different buildings and architecture. And I also wanted to have the project big enough that we could test out the limits of this game in terms of, frame rate down the road without actually committing to a full park quite yet. My end goal is to eventually do like a full-size park. I think the most interesting thing about this game is making a full-size park with lots of different rides and things in it and all that stuff. That's my end goal, but I don't know yet if we're going to do it in this park or if we're going to try a new park after this. The main thing was pick something fun, something exciting we could do in one big project that's sort of condensed into one ride, and then from there move on to maybe something new or continue into a full-size park, something like that. But anyway, the theme of the ride is going to be a fantasy theme, so it might seem like, because of a name, it's sort of like a Greek mythology kind of thing, but I decided against that mostly because I didn't really want to do Greek architecture, so we're looking more like a fantasy theme, very fantasy inspired buildings and architecture. I want to have these like big surreal mountains with lots of water elements and stuff towards the middle. That's what you're seeing right now. And then I wanted to have, of course, the option for lots of foliage and flat rides and things around the outskirts and different areas. But just the freedom to do whatever I wanted with that sort of theme. So the name Icarus is definitely more inspired by the ride layout itself. I wouldn't be, expecting too much from the name in the architecture and the theming. Now, you might have noticed by now that there's no footage of the coaster creation in this video, and that's with good reason. Like I said before, I just started playing this game, and one of the biggest obstacles that I had to overcome was learning how to use the coaster creator in a way where all the elements that you make are smooth, not only from the outside view, but in particular in the coaster cam. This game kind of has like a wonky coaster cam. It's not necessarily bad or anything, but I think it's really hard to create a game like this that has like freeform coaster creation tools that looks nice from the coaster cam perspective. And I think that Frontier had kind of a large task in front of them. They had to make a game that was interesting enough and fun enough for kind of casual players to jump in and be able to easily take their coaster ideas in their mind and put them into the game. And if they would have used some sort of like vertice-based thing like No Limits 2 did, it would have been much harder to do something like that. And that's obviously a piece of software that's much more geared towards, enthusiasts and people who are willing to put in a lot of time to make very precise designs. But the nice thing about something like a vertice-based design system, which actually might be to an extent what Planet Coaster is, but the nice thing about that is that the on-ride cam and the smoothing is very, very precise, and it looks super nice. So when you're like riding a coaster in No Limits 2, it looks really, really smooth, and the physics are super realistic. Whereas in a game like Planet Coaster, there's some trade-offs coming with this different design system. While it is much easier to use for beginners and people just wanted to jump in and make coasters, I think that there's a bit of a trade-off in the smoothness, especially in the coaster cam. So there is some methodology behind making smooth elements. I tried to play around with stuff, and I think many people who've played this game before will agree with me that it does take a bit of tweaking to make things look smooth in the coaster cam. But with all that in mind, it was a ton of trial and error, and I think it'd be very boring to watch for you guys. So I'll spare you from that, and I'm sure in the next project I'll be including the coaster footage now that I got more of a grip on the coaster creator. But for now, I just want to jump straight into the terraforming. So like I said at the beginning of the video, I want these mountains to look really surreal and fantasy-like. So I tried to kind of look into that a little bit and see what those sort of landscapes would look like, and it seems like there's always these really jagged peaks at the top and really dramatic ridges that are really sharp and angular. And then as we get down lower and lower, we're kind of moving more into these big sweeping ridges and things that kind of sweep off to the side. So I tried to sort of follow that in different areas. Now, obviously in areas, specifically this area here next to the launch, I can't really like finalize the design because we're going to go back and add all this scenery to support the coaster. We're going to have actual ride supports for the launch section and the upper area. And that's going to require, again, putting the scenery down. We need the mountain there so we know, where the scenery goes in the first place. And then we'll go back and do all the fine details and all that stuff. But the back sections like this area aren't really going to be touched again. So this is where I go in and actually make the mountains look how I want them to look. And you'll notice I'm using the same technique that I've always used for city skylines and, other games where I've made mountains, where I think just starting with big basic forms like big pyramids is a good idea. And then using that flattening tool in particular to bring those sides down to where they meet is a really good way of going about it. And then that way you can sort of use, just like in real life, the runoff of the water would be coming down to those middle seams and then creating these big valleys where the rivers form. So I'm trying to do that a little bit with this area. And again, there's just so many peaks and things in this particular location that it's not all there, but I think it's a good way to start with the mountains. And then once you get those basic shapes down, it's much easier to start detailing and adding these ridges and stuff and making it look all nice. But I do just want to talk a bit about this Planet Coaster terraforming tool. I mean, it's by far the best terraforming tool of any game. Like, it's seriously amazing. It's so awesome how you can just pull rock over itself and you can create these like big caves and caverns and rock cliffs that are like actually hanging over themselves. And as we go about this, again, because this is my first time using this tool, like I just started with the very beginning of this video was the first time I've ever used this terraforming tool, so I didn't really know what I was doing with these terraforming like tools, especially I was just using a lot of the push and the pull. But you're gonna see, like right now in particular, using this flattening tool is a really good way to get the basic shape of the mountain down, because you always have kind of like a nice gradual slope near the bottom. So using the flattening tool to kind of grab onto that angle you want and then just bring the whole thing down and then make the seams and then go in and add those ridges is a really good way to go about doing that. But then even beyond that, you can use the flattening tool to get really, really sharp rocks that you could never do with the push-pull tool. So, just little tricks like that. And there's so many of them that I don't even know yet. I mean, I'm just trying to learn the basic tools, but there's a lot of techniques you can use to make some really cool looking mountains in this game. So, hopefully we can explore that more through this series and try new things, because again, these are just the basic mountains in areas where I really needed them so that I would know where to put all of the scenery and stuff. But later down the road, as we start adding scenery to the station and the turnaround back by the station and the pathways and stuff, we're obviously gonna have to add more mountains and more hills and ridges and stuff to kind of, smooth this terrain out a bit and make it look more natural, not just like a giant mountain range in the middle of a big flat area. So we'll come back to that obviously, but just for the start anyway, it's been a lot of fun just to create these mountains. And you'll see, especially in this back turnaround area over here, this is like one of the only elements that I really wasn't entirely sure about, mostly because I want to have a big restaurant over on the side of the lake nearest to the coaster station over there. And the problem with that is the view of this little like lake area in the back by this big mountain ridge. We're gonna have like lots of waterfalls and cool ridges and stuff back here when we actually go in and finally detail it when we have the scenery and stuff in place. It's kind of blocked by these giant supports and this big turnaround thing. So I think at some point I want to go back and retweak this turnaround, make it a little bit more terrain conforming, get it closer to the mountain ridges and the waterfalls and stuff, and see what we can do with that, just so that this whole area isn't blocked off so much by these giant, supports and whatnot. So we'll get to that later on, but here you can see I'm going to start using this flattening tool to try and create these like big sharp mountains. You can see right now I'm just using the pull tool, just really doesn't do it like it should. So I'll grab this flattening tool and just kind of bring these rocks out, and you can make these super sharp rocks, kind of like the flat irons and boulders, something like that. But it's a good way of going about making sharper rocks. And then you can go in with the push tool again and kind of tweak things here and there. And this is like my first go at it, so obviously they look kind of bad, but I'll go back over this again later on, and especially use this technique over in the front near the coaster launch section to make it look much better, much more realistic. But I think these big, flat, sharp rocks are really, really kind of like the quintessential fantasy sort of style that you see in these mountains. So I'm hoping to get more of that in the rest of these mountains as we go on here. And that's pretty much all I want to say about the mountains. So I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys with the rest of this video, just the remains of the mountain design, and then jump into a POV of the sort of semi-final coaster layout, minus maybe some tweaks and some smoothing and stuff. You can see what it looks like and where it's going to go from here. And then join me in the next episode and we'll jump into the coaster station creation.